Strap in for a roller coaster ride where curiosity, humor, laughter, and the odd case of wisdom is applied to understanding the adventure of life.
Welcome to the Rawle and Gene Show, the power of coaching, guided by two knuckleheads who invite you to sit in the front car with them on this ride.
Trust us, it's not as serious as it sounds.
And high fives are included. Hey everybody, our topic today is navigating the rough seas of life and how do we handle experiencing the harshness of some of our experiences and also the greatness of some of our experiences.
It starts with, first of all, not just saying life is going to give you harsh experiences, is actually, we say it, but then when it happens, we act like it's something surprising. To me, that's almost like a loaded question. It depends on where in life you are. I always love to say you're here to experience the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. The way I used to handle the bad and the ugly is not anything close to the way I handle it today. So I think a lot of it depends on where in life you are with any subject.
To share what that contrast looks like and what it means for you now being on the other side of that experience.
Before I handled adversity, I would say almost from a victim standpoint. Why me? Why is this happening? It's unfair. Fill in the blanks, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to say. Today, I just go with it because I like to think I know who I am today, comfortable with who I am. And I've made a choice not to allow external things to determine who I am. I choose to understand who I am and be constant to that. So regardless of what situation, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or beautiful, I'm going to be consistently me in those experiences and not have those experiences define me, or I'm going to have those experiences as soon as they show up, all whatever spiritual understanding you have and believe and all the stuff people talk about the universe and all this, it goes out the window when these things happen. Those are the times when actually, if you truly believe what you say you believe, that's the time to actually practice it.
When hearing all that is like, the question comes up to me is like, for people that are watching and listening to us, is like, they hear there was a point in your life where the bad and the ugly was like hit with, like you said, victim, why me? What was the self-talk going on? What kind of questions do you remember you asking yourself about yourself at that time versus now in the contrast of you saying, I invite the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly to be here for?
I don't know if I could questions that I can remember specific questions that I may ask myself. For me, it was just like I was always stuck in this, why me, poor me? Why is this? How much do I have to take? Don't you think I've suffered enough in my life already? Kind of mentality. Never really wanting to understand a lot of it was self-induced. And then even the parts that wasn't induced by me because we live with other people, they were still somehow never my fault. So I was always this hurt little child feeling like life was just piling stuff onto me. And then I think I still held on to a concept of God back then. So why do you keep doing this mentality? So for me, it was always someone else's fault, not mine. The underlying feeling that I always had, it was always somebody else's fault. Look at all the things that's happened to me. Why is more stuff? So that's one of the things I've learned is that even when you say you have your spiritual awakening, your consciousness shifts and all this stuff, it's going to continue to. And it's up to you now to either respond or react to it. And sometimes you need to react and sometimes you need to respond.
I also hear from you, though, Rawle, it's like there was a lack of accountability of owning what you needed to own within yourself and working past the why questions, because why is super defensive even when we point it internally. And now what I hear is learn to have the accountability of going, this is how I'm going to be accountable to how I show up, regardless of the external instances. How did that come about in that? What does it mean about accountability if you're like looking back on that spectrum of its growth within you?
But a lot of it for me was to actually really go into the experiences that I held on to that I could not rationalize, I could not reconcile. So it's by being able to do that, once I was really entrenched in that internal work, was to really look at those experiences and try to understand them from a different perspective, to step out of the emotions of the feelings of them. And then what, I always tell people, your feelings, your emotions are never right or wrong. It's just how you feel. Can you step out of it for a second to look at it from a 360 standpoint? So I was able to look at these two or three experiences that I just I could not reconcile, right, within my victim mentality. And once I was able to look at them differently, one of them, I still did not get an answer to why it happened to me. And I never will. Like being sexually abused, I have no idea why that person did that to me. But my experience and then the work that I was doing had taught that the reason why, or more than likely the reason why, is that what's probably what happened to him. Coming to that conclusion, I was able to put that to bed. I was able to let go the suffering of that experience. Um, my daughter's passing. I remember last year, I think it was 2 days after she passed. I remember asking my higher power, why me? 3 times I asked, why me? And 3 times the answer was, why not you? And I was like, point. So I was able to then digest it and go, okay, I was not the only father that day to have lost a child. This was her choice. This was what was not destined, but this is what was meant to be because that's what. And doesn't matter how much I beat myself up. If you want to step into regret, whatever, it's not going to bring her back because it was her time to go. So, for me, it's that simple. And I break it down and I look at it that way and I go, okay, I'm good. I'm good. My daughter's not in pain anymore. She made a conscious choice of what she wanted to do. I can either accept it or fight it. And me accepting or fighting it had no bearing on the choice that she made. That was her choice to make.
There's a component of that accepting isn't just like knocking it under the rug either. There's still pain, grief, and all the experiences and love and joys, and that's what grief's all about. That you miss out on now,
Yeah.
right? And everybody does, and that's I think the important part about accepting is you still get to feel those things. And where we talk about being at like that meta view, you can observe yourself feeling those things, going,
Yeah.
that is natural, human, and I get to choose how I'm going to respond to life, even though I'm in the midst of experiencing these things.
I feel for me, and I can only speak for myself, obviously, but when those types of experiences, a lot of times I've realized that we're conditioned to feel a certain way. We're supposed to grieve a certain way. And I don't experience things like that. And yeah, it was a shock. It was upsetting. It was harsh losing a child. Very quickly, how are you really feeling? Because there was a big part of me that was really good because I knew she was never really happy here. I had the same experience with my foster son when I was in Kelowna. Kelly, technically, alcohol poisoning killed him, but he drank himself. He wanted out of this world. Felt he never felt connected here. And you understand that if someone is in that kind of pain and then they make a choice. For me, there was a big part as her father. Number one, her passing does not change the fact that I'm her father. Number two, it doesn't change the fact that I love her. Even when I pass on, that love is still going to be there. Number three, I truly believe we will see each other again. That's why I always tell people until we meet again. We're not going to meet in these forms, but whatever energy, if you truly believe energy is something that cannot die and it just transform into something else, then I will encounter her energy again, just like I know I've encountered it before. It's just a belief. I can't prove it. I'm not going to try to prove it. It's just what I believe. So when you have those types of beliefs, for me, it's really dependent on you to really examine yourself and go, is that how you're really feeling? And I found that the expectation of how I should grieve and how I should feel wasn't feeling. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna fake it.
Yeah.
not going to fake it to appease other people because they don't think I'm grieving the way they should. And somehow me being strong in how I am is somehow speaking negatively of how they choose to grieve. Not at all. So that's why I said it. A lot of it depends on where you are. So when you ask these types of questions, not to get political when we talk about wealth gap disparity, when you put everything into one pot and not really look at different control mechanisms within that pot, you're just going to get things that sometimes seem like it's not fair, but that's not always the truth. So
Right.
I was, for me, doing my due diligence and doing my due diligence within, regardless of what the situation is. How am I truly perceiving this? And am I even willing to step out of my perception to look at it in a different way? And when you do the work, it's this almost since it took a while, but you get to a point where it's almost instant, where actually it looks like you're reacting, but you're not. You're actually responding because you've been doing the work. Again, a lot of it depends on where you are. But the biggest thing is, you really accept that you're going to have negative, harsh experiences, and particularly for parents. We never, ever imagine our children dying before us or even having some of the harsh experiences that we have. My sister and I were talking about.
I'm a parent um, as well, so like you always have this hope that they don't have to go through that,
I know.
right? And I think there's being where I'm at as a parent now and in my own personal journey is like I can have that hope because that would be a beautiful thing and that they learn through different mechanisms. But I also understand that there are things in this life that are wildly out of our control. And how is the best way to set up being the persons that they can learn from through catching versus being taught to is being present, acknowledging that shit happens sometimes and shit can be great or can also be horrible, and that this too we can get through.
You got through it.
Yeah.
I don't even sit there and go, I hope my children don't. I remember years back when Harris was still a young boy and his mom and I were talking about something that he was going through, and we were being parents. And she goes, it seems like at times you want Harris to fall. I go, I do. She goes, why would you want your child to fall? I said, because number one, that's not in my control. He's going to fall. He's going to fall. He's going to have those experiences. My job is to teach him how to get up. My job is to teach him not to lay down just because you've been knocked down, that you can make the choice to get up and how you choose to get up and what you can learn from the experience. And I think that's what we don't do a lot with our children because, like you said, I don't want to go through the same mechanism. That's really not up to you. Really not up to you. And that's
No.
one of the problems with parents. It's not so much your children hurt; they don't have control. And if you had control, you would bubble wrap your kids, but then you're doing them more harm than good. So,
Right.
what world are you preparing them for? We're seeing that already in our society today of the last two generations who have not been truly taught life really is. So if you prepare children for life how you would like it to be, that- I'll just say that's gonna be a very interesting experience.
Even in our own experiences, I know I've had thoughts about how I should have been, how relationships should have been, how being a parent, how being a friend should have been, and all these things, and being like slammed with with life going, wake up. That's not how it is.
That's not how it is.
That's not how it is right now, and life is requiring you to show up.
Yeah.
So you have that opportunity to shrink down or to find what is it that within yourself that you have this capacity to experience this. In my place of growth is like I I don't look at like the feelings as good or bad anymore. There isn't negative emotions or positive emotions. They're messengers. They're telling me something. They're acknowledging that an experience is happening, either one that I'm visualizing or one that I'm experiencing from the external world, and I can use them to help inform how I want to respond. Knowing that I have past experiences based on what would happen if I responded with anger versus if I responded with apathy versus joyfulness, and how do I want to be and what is right for me in that moment. And you added something earlier about how learning about yourself. There was a component of you learned within a boundary of, or like a guideline of who you choose to be within all those experiences. Call
Yeah.
them values, call them boundaries, call them whatever you want, but you have a sense of this is who I'm going to be when life shows up. And life is constantly in every moment, never endingly showing up. So you
Life
get
is
to have that choice of saying, hey, I'm going to show up with this. And when I get to a line, I'm going to meet life there and we're going to have a discussion.
let's look at your life and look at the people in your life. And it's easy to talk love and spirituality when things are good.
It's like,
When things are good and beautiful, it's easy to talk.
yeah,
But when shit hits the fan, look at what most people tend to do. They revert back to the victim within,
well, there's like
right? And
that smallness of like shrinking down, hoping, is it going to pass us by? Be like, oh no, it sinks in
like
right
when
now.
it's like when I'm working with some of my clients and I have Christians before, and they believe God will handle it and give God your burden and all this, which is their beliefs. And I'm not saying right or wrong, but I'd always say to them, especially when something happens, when harshness happens, and they'll revert to the opposite. And I go, wait a minute, what happened to handing it over to God? If you truly believe to hand it over to God, God will handle it. And God does not give you anything that you can't handle. Then what are you stressing about? Then what are you stressing about? I'm still human. I go, I never said you weren't human. So to me, as a human being, I am going to be who I am in every moment, regardless of what the moment brings. And I am not going to deviate from that. Why? I have a litany of experience of when I had to deviate from that. But I've also learned that my resiliency comes from the harsh and ugly experiences. The good and the beautiful plays this much. Harsh, falling down, getting knocked down, maybe laying on the ground for a second, but then you're getting up. And this laying there and this getting up is where your resiliency really comes in. It's what you're learning. It's what, okay, yeah, that sucked. I didn't like it, but I'm not going to let it hold me down. Why? I'm greater than that. That experience is actually what reinforcing the good and the beautiful. I can't know the good and the beautiful without these types of experiences. So when we talk about resilience and we teach these things to children, but we act like they're just like a word that we wear on a t-shirt. It's an actual practice,
Well,
right? It's an actual practice. Resiliency, whether, it could be an adjective or an adverb, but it's more of an adjective, but resilient is an actual verb. It requires action work. It's an actual conscious choice that I know I've gone through harshness before. One of the things that I used to always say to my children, particularly Harris when he was younger, is, how old am I? He goes, oh, you're like 52, Dad. Why do you always ask that question? I go, I'm trying to point out to you that I got to 52. I got to 62. I got to 62, and I didn't get to 62 in a basket tied up in a nice red bow and everything harsh and ugly was rubbed off my back like Teflon. No, I had to go through all of those experiences, and you will as well. How you go through it is up to you.
that's the choice,
And,
right?
and yeah, and again, depending on where you are in life and depending on the person, because maybe someone had told me that when I was younger, but I didn't want to hear it because when you're young, you think you're invincible, you're going to live forever. And more so when you're young, you think it's always going to be that.
Oh,
Right?
I love that point right there. It's like the one thing I've learned as a 43-year-old man in my experiences is like the way that I thought things were just going to be, like that that has changed so rapidly. And
Mhm.
as I get more adept at seeing the different perspectives and stuff, it's almost like I hold on to that should be that way really loosely in my life. And the looser I get, faster it changes, and the faster the experiences are coming. Going, oh, that was how I was, and now I get to learn what else is important to me in this experience right now, and how I want to show up, and finding those ways of what is actually needing to be expressed from my depth. I don't have a better word for it. It's like what can be expressed from my depth that shows and speaks how I want to be, regardless of the situation. And only through letting go of how it should be is I've learned, and it's like almost the cheat code. It's unlocking it faster.
Mhm. And for me, those kind of answers that you just positioned, for me, one of the biggest things is, can you stay fully present in the moment? I think that was one of the things that really helped me through passing of Irene. I stayed in the moment. I didn't get sucked down the whirlpool of regrets and in the past, or thinking about things that we're not going to get to experience. So I stayed in the moment, right? Because it's only in the moment you have full access to all your skills and your tools. So for me, that was one of the biggest things was, can you stay present in this? Feel it, live it, breathe it. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Just be it. When I think back, man, it was such a that experience of going to the hospital, watching my daughter on the gurney, still remembering bending over and kissing her on the forehead and thanking her avatar, right? I just remember being just so present. And even when we went back to her grandmother's house and just watching everyone else and just taking it all in. You know why? That was my experience to have. We get lost in, oh, it sucks and it's terrible and all that. Yeah, it may be, but it was still my experience to have. And I've had experiences
You see
like that in the
full world
past where
there.
I did not stay present. And I've learned, but that's what I'm saying. Our past is not a tool to use to beat ourselves up. It's a tool. It's a vignette of us to step in to learn. And technically, we're always in the past. We're living the past because this moment just passed. So now it's past. We're actually not living the future. We're living the past, and the future is going to come from what we do. So I have no fear of the past because all those things that I have done has led me to where I am. And I'm going to use my experiences, not to harm myself, but to further better myself, to further understand this consciousness that I'm in, this physical present world. Me being present, being in the moment, is key to when you're dealing with some of these situations because, like you're just saying, it shouldn't be this way. It's like expectations. We all have these expectations. And then when it does manifest itself, that's not how it should be because that's not how I thought it should be. That's how it always works. You can think how something's going to be. That's why I always tell people, don't try to, a lot of people tell you not to have expectations. Good luck with that. Just have expectations,
Yeah.
but then let them go.
When they meet reality and maybe they match or they don't match or however that is, that's just how that is. What do we
Yeah.
learn from it? What do we grow from it? What can we take from this? Like, it's what are we going to stop doing? What are we going to start doing? And what are we going to continue doing now that this expectation, this manifestation, this goal or whatever it is has met reality? Now what?
I
Now
think
how do I
sometimes
want to be with this?
sometimes we complicate life, make it more complicated than it needs to be. But then again, having said that, you need to complicate it to understand the simplicity of it as well.
And there's the word that you'd said earlier was like not getting lost, or at least that was the theme of not getting lost in that moment. Is you could have been telling yourself these stories within your mind about all that you were experiencing and not been present.
Yeah.
And one of the practices that I use quite a lot actually is I used to tell myself a lot of stories about a thing and get ripped up, either good or bad about that. And I catch myself going, no, we're not telling stories right now. Be present. And every time I do that, it's almost like the world gets a little bit clearer and I can feel myself standing up straighter. And I'm really starting to notice how I would slouch and stuff. Like I'm starting to get it in tune with my body about when I'm not present. And it's interesting to like experience that all from that place of stop telling a story. Stop telling a story. Watch me connect with my breath. Stop telling a story. Now watches me. Oh yeah, stand up and be engaged in this moment, all from these little practices that I am using to help bring myself to be more present.
Yeah. My belief is I'm spirit, world spirit energy. And if that's the case, then that energy, Rawle is this avatar. The energy, the essence, the spirit that I am is not named Rawle, has no name. It's just is. Not again getting the philosophical thing, but in this physical world, as spirit in this body. I believe everything that I do is spiritual because I'm spirit. Spirit has chosen to come have these physical experiences, these physical manifestation of thoughts, because that's all we are is a thought. Again, that's just my belief. But I'm not just here to have one thought. I'm not here to just have one experience. I'm here to have multitude of experience that fits in the umbrellas of the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. That's been consistent throughout my life. That's been consistent throughout history. And you cannot know one without the other. We live in a time now where we have so much, and I use the word decadence, and I don't mean decadence in just material things, but the convenience of life, that we forget that life also can be hard. And then we want to eliminate the harshness. Good luck with that. Right. I accept most people, I believe most people do have good hearts, but I also accept there are people out there that don't. There are people out there that just want to blow shit up, that just want to do bad things. I accept that. Why? I see it play it out all the time. I do it at times.
We're all
We
capable of
all have
all
the
those
ability
things.
to be good and to be bad within us. And I think teaching our children that those energies exist in us and that we can do those things. And it's not just somebody else. It exists in us. We will do good, bad, ugly, and beautiful. And we will have good, bad, ugly, and beautiful happen to us. And I don't think we teach our children these things. I don't think, and we keep putting on other children because children follow our lead. So what are we as adults are we doing?
Yeah.
Well,
Are
how
we?
are we walking?
This stuff is caught by us modeling it
Yeah.
and them going, oh, there's something different happening here.
Yeah.
What is that? They may never put words to it, but they will catch it and they will start to pick up on it and they will see it. And it is that place where I talked about hope for our kids. My hope is that they will learn to play within their full capacity, to experience it all, to get up, to build strong relationships, to be able to experience what it's like to practice resilience, not to be resilient, but to practice it.
I just want my children, like everyone else, just to live however they choose to live. And we can impart all sorts of wisdom and knowledge that we think. At the end of the day, they're going to do what they're designed to do, just like we did. Just like we did. Do I want my children to fall? Yeah, definitely. Because they're going to. And even if I said I didn't want them to fall, that's not going to stop them from falling. How you perceive me, how you perceive what I do, whether you agree with it or not, is not a requirement to how I choose to walk. It's the same thing for my kids. How I think of them, the fears I may hold or not hold, the dreams I may hold or not hold, is not a requirement for them and how they choose to live their lives. I think a lot of times we get bogged down in looking at other people and this person talks this way, but then they walk a different way. I just came off a poetry show and the guy introduced me as this guru. And I go, I am no guru. I'm just one guy walking my walk. Because you could blink an eye and then you'll see something that I'm doing and not liking. And then all of a sudden that guru is now being pushed off of the pedestal that you put me off. Take me off the damn pedestal because you're going to be the first one to want to push me off the pedestal when I do something that you like. I am going to walk the best way I understand me. It's not a condemnation of anyone else. It's just what's best for me. I choose to the best of my ability, and I could be delusional, but I choose to see life for what it really is. I used to see it the way I wanted to. That caused way more suffering. This way, I accept it for what it is. And I accept the suffering that goes into this world because you can't know joy without suffering.
I love that.
I accept that. I accept, and I accept in my little puny understanding of this humanity, I am going to do good, bad, ugly, and beautiful.
You've accomplished all that today.
Maybe.
I will take that as that. God forbid I call you guru, get all uppity about
Don't
it, but
call me, don't, I'm not a guru. I don't know what
okay.
the hell that means, to be honest with you. I'm just a guy, man. I don't know, man.
It's just a guy standing in front of a microphone talking to other people. It's just
Gene,
yeah.
when I look at my life, man, when I look at the things that I've gone through, the things I've experienced, I really sincerely, it's not possible. But if that magical genie was to come and said, "Hey, I could send you back, and we could remove this, and we could remove that," I'd be like, "No, I wouldn't change a damn thing. Nothing. I like who I am. I like where I've gotten to, where I am in this moment,
Yeah,
and I like what I choose to be in the next moment and the moment after that. But I'm not going to change anything, and
I love that.
can't change anything. If I'm going to change anything, I'll change it now. This is the only time I could change anything. And that's what I'm constantly monitoring myself
It's that whole like adage of like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Right
now,
now, right?
right
Like,
now.
my kids laugh at me and mock me sometimes, but I'm just like, you got to be the change you want to see in your world. If there's something about that you want change, be like that. You have to dive in and do the inner work. I'm going, what is it about this that I require this change? And is it a change that I need to reevaluate something internally? Or maybe, like you'd said earlier, is like really listen to what is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I'm trying to experience versus top level story that shows up initially?
I'm not trying to experience anything anymore. I'm just being me. I'm going to show up the way I show up.
And I love
Sometimes you'll like it. Sometimes you won't.
and I love you for it.
That's okay if you don't like it. And that's okay if you like it. I don't care either way. Not a requirement. It's not a requirement at all. And I just think this is why I invite people to really understand their power. Because one of the biggest problems outside of death is we feel that we have no control, particularly parents. When things are happening to our children, we feel helpless because there's nothing we can really do. We can guide them through certain things. There's some physical things that we can do, but a lot of it, they have to go through it. Same with our friends and family and everything else. And that's just life. But that's why I said when good shows up, good doesn't show up by itself and bad doesn't show up by itself. Look at your life.
Yeah.
When you're going through really good periods in your life, but things are really going, you and your wife are clicking and everything, bad still shows up. Even if when you're in a bad, when you feel that things aren't vibing and not connecting, blah, 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 good still shows up. You can still have moments of good in the harshness, right? So they don't just show up by themselves. You have to accept the full spectrum of the moment, the full spectrum of life, and you have to accept the full spectrum of your choice. Full spectrum of your choice is knowing I have a choice, but your choices are linked consequences.
And
Don't make the choice,
so
you want to accept all the consequences.
how would you bottom line everything that you've shared today?
Say that again.
How would you bottom line what you've shared today?
Embrace the harshness of life the same way you embrace the good of it. Because the learning in the harshness sometimes surpass the learning from the good. Like I said, it's really easy when things are good to talk a certain way. The harshness invites you to not just talk it, but to walk it. And that's where a lot of people stumble. Talking it is easy to talk it when things are good.
Super easy to talk.
Super easy.
Super easy.
Oh, I love you so much. When things are really good, I love you. Everyone is great. When things go bad, what happens? So
Look out.
I might embrace it all because they're both there to serve you and they don't just show up. You're manifesting it to some degree. And I always believe we attract based on what we hold with. Yeah. So
That's a whole nother.
that's a hold it.
All right, my friend. That kind of wraps up our show. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for watching. We hope that this was an excellent show for you and that you enjoyed what we were talking about. If you've got any comments, questions, or topics you'd like us to hit, let us know. We're always open to it, and we'd love to explore that with you. Till next time, I'm Gene. It's my partner in crime, Rawle, and we will see you next week on the Rawle and Gene Show. Oh, one last thing. It's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.